watch a lot of Friends reruns. Like, a lot. Like, every single day. And when other people see me watching Friends reruns, they're like, oh, I love Friends. You must love Friends too. I'm like, not really. I mean, I like it okay. Parts of it. But I'm not like this like huge fan. I also didn't watch the reunion last year on like HBO Max or whatever. Because like I said, I'm just not into it like that. But I did think the memes on Twitter about Matt LeBlanc looking like an Irish uncle were hilarious. If you missed them at the time, Google them. They're so funny. Hello, I'm recording something. My dog came over. She just wanted to come over because she doesn't like it when things don't directly involve her. And she wanted to be included. Hey, do you have anything to say to the internet? Insightful. On American television, Friends is in constant syndication, like on every single channel. You really can't get away from it. So whenever I'm watching TV and there's really nothing else on and I don't really feel like streaming anything, it's just like, okay, screw it. Friends, why not? There's nothing else on anyway. So basically, against my will, I have seen Friends beginning to end at least 100 times by this point, probably more. And along the way, I've formed extremely strong opinions about it, as I'm wont to do. Also, since this is a Friends video, I try to dress like 90s-ish. And I don't know if it like worked out because I just kind of like dressed the way I normally do in the winter. And I have this big ass mug, the way they always have like big ass mugs at the Central Perk. Except mine is plastic and it's a soup mug and it's from Target. So here they are, my Friends hot takes that will probably make Friends fans in the comments yell at me and say that they hate me. Number one, it stayed on the air way longer than it should have. This is my opinion, but I think that the longer a show stays on the air, the more seasons a show has, the more diminishing returns. I think that in the late seasons of the show, particularly ones that stay on the air for as long as Friends did, which was 10 freaking years, writer's room either experiences heavy rotations of old writers switching with new writers, or overall they just start running out of good ideas and just start throwing random stuff at the wall. The humor tends to be less funny. The cast's chemistry starts to lose some of its sparkle. I think for the final season of Friends, it was more about the fans that had stuck around for so long and the nostalgia and the random loose ends that they just kind of forgot to wrap up during previous seasons. I think that a lot of the writing didn't age well either, which is to be expected. It's a show of its time for sure. Number 2. There we go. I also think that with a lot of long-running shows, but especially Friends, the characters start to become caricatures of themselves, with TV writing in particular. And this is just something I've heard from a television writer in a podcast that I like to listen to, because obviously I'm not a TV writer. As you're figuring out what a show is going to be in its first season, you figure out the characters along the way too. It's not like with novel writing, because a lot of novel writers like myself like to write like these like character biographies, like not like literal like book biographies, but like little charts about like aspects of their character, or even like I've heard of some people writing like fake character interviews to get to know their own characters before they start writing the book. With television writing, particularly network television, they have a writer's room and a limited amount of time to write each episode. I believe they have more time to write the pilot and like maybe the first couple of episodes of the first season, because before a show is ordered by a network to season, they have way more time to work on the episodes and really just like develop everything. But once a show is called to order, it's basically nonstop writing and nonstop filming. In some cases, the director's like, are you finished writing this episode? We film it in a week. And the writers are like, oh crap, we gotta finish this in less than a week. Quick, just write anything. And they likely spend their time on it, working on it until the wee hours of the morning until the episode is done. And more likely, it's probably not going to be one of the best episodes because, you know, they had like 4 days to finish it. Hey, remember that whole television writers' strike of like 2007? Yeah, I would never write for TV. It sounds like being a writer on hard mode. Anyway, number 2 and like a half. All of that to say, characters in the last seasons of Friends are not the same characters that we meet in the first 2 seasons. I think Rachel had the most positive character development throughout the show. She matures and becomes more independent and much more confident in herself and in her life in general. The rest of the cast, oi. Monica becomes a shrill, high-strung shell of her former self. Joey becomes a dumb little kid. Ross becomes unbearable. Phoebe's somehow more down to earth and also like a monster. Chandler, well, actually, Chandler pretty much stays the same. Like maybe his hair, but they all like change their hair like a million times except for David Schwimmer, who just keeps it the same throughout the whole 10 years of the show. Maybe Chandler becomes like a little less quippy, you know? Oh, and he gets good at commitment because, you know, fear of commitment was like his character's whole thing at the beginning. Although I think they used Janice way too much. I mean, after the first few times they broke up, it was like, oh, right, enough already. In the first season, it was clear that Monica was meant to be the it girl. She's actually my favorite character in the first season. And it makes sense because Courtney Cox was most known at the time for being that girl in that Bruce Springsteen music video. Before Friends, Lisa Kudrow also played Phoebe's twin, Ursula, in a show called Mad About You, which basically no one remembers now. I'm pretty sure everyone else was an unknown, but I mean, you can correct me on that. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, basically Courtney Cox was poised to be the it girl of the show. I mean, you can even tell with all of the A plot lines sort of revolving around her in the early seasons, with her kind of being the straight man to like all her friends' shenanigans. Rachel was just the high-strung, spoiled, rich runaway bride who becomes her waitress. I wrote that so harshly. That was actually really mean. I promise you, I don't hate Rachel. I really don't. But after the success of the first season, the writers realized that Jennifer was the fan favorite. And so they started to subtly shift the emphasis of the show onto her character's development and of course her and Ross. Hell, even her haircut was like a whole sensation. Everybody wanted the Rachel. In my opinion, Monica and Rachel even start to subtly switch some personality traits. It was like the more likable and relatable they wanted Rachel to be, the less likable and relatable Monica had to be in their eyes for some reason. And it's like they had to make her more annoying compared to Rachel. Going back to Joey, when you compare season 1 Joey to season 10 Joey, the difference is shocking. Season 1 Joey was cool. Yeah, Joey was the cool one. He wore hip clothes like leather and tight jeans, and he was the cool guy to Chandler's funny guy and Ross's cute / sweet whiny guy. Plus he was really hot. Like really hot. He had a 90s boy band haircut and I'm just like super into it. But yeah, he was just like this cool sort of douchebaggy guy who actually had clever lines sometimes. I mean, he wasn't just there on the show existing to be the dumbass. By the end of the show, he's this big dummy who exclusively wears Hawaiian t-shirts. It was like the writers of the final season had never even seen season 1. And it baffles me that they thought that guy was the one who could carry an entire spin-off series on his own. Who thought that was a genius idea? What's the matter with you? Which brings me to my next point, which is really gonna set people off. Get your Rotten Tomatoes ready. Number 3/4, I'm losing count. Rachel and Joey should have ended up together. Not the face! Okay, listen. Just hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. Their personalities were way more suited to each other. The whole basis of Ross and Rachel's relationship is that he'd had this, frankly, creepy, one-sided crush on her since they were kids. He put her on this pedestal for years. And then when he finally got the chance to date her, he overreacted to his own jealousy of her relationship with Mark. It wasn't a relationship, it was a friendship. And self-sabotaged their relationship. Literally within hours of thinking that he and Rachel were broken up, he hooked up with someone else. And then when Rachel is understandably angry and upset about that, he's contrite at first. Then he starts to double down and frame her feelings of betrayal as her own fault rather than as a natural consequence of a decision that he made, which is exactly what manipulators do. Every time he shrieks, "We were on a break," I just want to slug him in his face. It's not even funny. It just further cements to me that Ross is the living worst. He's selfish, he's possessive, and worst of all, in the finale, he stops her from going to Paris. He prevents her being able to have her dream job. Once in a lifetime opportunity because feelings? That's like every worst Hallmark movie. Back to Joey. He was Rachel's friend, just her friend, for years without any expectations. He got to know her in an organic way, saw her ups and downs, saw her flaws. And when he develops feelings for her years down the line, it's not on the basis of this pedestal idealized version of her that he's had in his head of her for years. He knows her. And oh my God, when he falls madly in love with her, she's pregnant. When people get pregnant, most of it is not pretty, okay? The reality of it, unlike what you see in like movies and TV shows. Lots of people joke that the pregnancy glow comes from puking all the time. You're sweaty, you get swollen in all sorts of places, you fart a lot. Tons of weird shit happens to you when you're pregnant. She was maybe most days feeling at her worst, and he fell in love with her. Just let that sink in. Let that sink in. Joey fell in love with the absolute opposite idealized version of Rachel. That's true love. And when she didn't return his feelings, it didn't change how much he cared about her. He didn't hold this grudge against her, or quote unquote friend zoning is not a thing, by the way. Oh, I hate that I just used air quotes. I promised myself I wouldn't use air quotes in this video. I did it. Falling in love with Rachel changed Joey as a person in the best ways. He put her first and cared so deeply about her. He was the first person that he'd ever felt that way about. And I will always hold a grudge against the way the writers handled Rachel returning his feelings several seasons later. I feel like they lost their nerve because the Ross and Rachel shippers, which was like everyone who watched the show, got angry about Joey's feelings for her before. And they were like, well, we gotta make the general audience happy. We also have to tie up these loose ends. What to do. Ah, I got it. We'll have them get together for a week and then have them break up for no reason. Yes. Perfect. Our job here is done. Yes, Ross and Rachel were the big will they, won't they of the series. And of course, by the end, after 10 years of buildup, if the writers hadn't made good on that buildup, there would have been actual rioting in the streets. But that decision is so deeply unsatisfying to me. And hey, listen, I enjoy will they, won't they's in general. I mean, they're a staple of the sitcom genre, especially thanks to Cheers, or possibly Moonlighting, or Remington Steele. A lot of people can't seem to agree where it originated. And I absolutely love them when they're done right. But in my opinion, Joey was so much more right for Rachel in so many different ways. I mean, he wants her to be her own person. He respects her decisions. And not to mention, he's possibly the least jealous person on the planet. And all he wants is the best for her. I guarantee you that instead of keeping her from going to Paris and like guilt tripping her off of the plane, Joey would have been on that plane with her. Although it's been established that he's absolutely horrible at French. Potential problem there. But I know he would work on it for her. Well, he'd try his best. Rachel deserved someone like that, rather than someone who constantly tried to keep her in a box, to keep her on his adolescent dream girl pedestal. But of course, the writers and the viewers wanted the dramatic rom-com she got off the plane finale, which, sure, fine, whatever. I hate it. Oh, and of course, they had to keep Joey's character arc open for the possibility of his spin-off, which, again, why? Who asked for that? My next point, which is inevitable, and is actually not a hot take at all. It's actually like a pretty popular opinion now. But it must be said, Living Single should have had what Friends had. Living Single debuted on television first. like the year before, I believe. And it had consistently high ratings throughout most of the show. Both were produced by Warner Brothers. When Friends premiered and began to take off in popularity, WB began neglecting Living Single in favor of promoting Friends more. When actor from Living Single, T.C. Carson, confronted Warner Brothers about that fact, they fired him from the show. Seems like Warner Brothers has a long-standing history of firing black men from their shows and movies who have something to say about working conditions and calling them out on their behavior. Interesting. Even the show creator, Yvette Lee Bowser, voiced disappointment that Warner Brothers didn't promote her show nearly as much as Friends. In the end, it only got 5 seasons. And the last season's airings were drawn out and they kept changing the night that it aired. Basically, Fox gave it a slow death so that the ratings would tank, and then they canceled it. Living Single was the blueprint for the friends living together as roommates sitcom format. It's like the idea of Friends was put together after, you know, some NBC execs saw the success of Living Single and went, hey, let's do exactly the same thing, except with white people in Manhattan, and not do anything different than that. It's kind of like that scene in Hairspray, the movie, where the Dynamites, a fictional girl group of black women based off of the Supremes, their song gets performed in a way worse, flavorless rendition by Brittany Snow and some backup dancers, and then they take all the credit for it. Yeah, Living Single was the blueprint. Put some respect on its name. Okay, and this is just a quick last point, but everyone always talks about how great the fashion is in the first handful of seasons, which, yes, love the 90s fashion, huge fan of that. But the fashion in the final season was by far the absolute worst, especially in the finale episode. It's like they just stopped trying or ran out of clothes. I mean, what the hell is this? Whose idea was that? And this one, what? She has a belt on her shirt. What the hell? I mean, I know we were getting to the part of the aughts where fashion was just getting really freaking weird, like cap sleeve shrugs with like these giant sequins and like the big sequin bags and Uggs with everything, skirts over jeans, I mean, shirts over shirts, under hoodies. I mean, that was a time. Oh, don't forget woven ponchos. That was just insane. No one wore any of those on the show, I'm pretty sure, but I mean, that's where we were at in the fashion world in like 2004. So, I mean, I guess it's not that surprising, but still. All right, that is all my friends' hot takes for now. I don't know. I might make another one. Actually, I also might make hot takes for other popular TV shows. This was kind of fun. Felt like a little controversial. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want. I hope you stick around. Also, I post clips of my videos on my TikTok, which I just made. Hilarious that in my last video I joked that I didn't make a TikTok when everyone else did in 2020, and now I have one. But yeah, so like follow me there if you want, I guess. It's just something I'm trying out. Oh yeah, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you later.